Hello everyone, and thank you for attending this session on the Police, Fire and Crime Commissioner's role in safeguarding. I am Zoe Metcalfe and I'm your Police, Fire and Crime Commissioner in North Yorkshire and York. The main objective of this session is to provide a better understanding of my role and my office's links to the wider safeguarding arena. During this session, I will in particular explore my role as a Police, Fire and Crime Commissioner in safeguarding, outline the current work with key local partners and organisations that contribute towards the wider safeguarding arena, highlight key areas of work that my team's progressed in relation to safeguarding over the last year, and answer any questions that you may have and ask you what you think we should focus on in relation to safeguarding over this next year. So that will come at the end. If you've got any questions, we'll do them at the end. Okay. Next slide, please. So my job can be explained as simply as this: to ensure that the people of North Yorkshire and York are safe and feeling safe wherever they are and whatever they're doing. So key to this is holding the Chief Constable of North Yorkshire Police and the Chief Fire Officer of North Yorkshire Fire and Rescue Service to account for delivery of their public services by applying a rich level of regular scrutiny on the issues that are affecting our communities. If something isn't serving the public well, I need to know about it, and receiving regular assurances from senior teams within each service that improvements will be made. I also support the strategic partnerships and other local community services, especially for those who are vulnerable or victims of crime throughout North Yorkshire and the City of York. Next slide, please. Thank you. Safeguarding is a collective responsibility and we cannot achieve this alone. So we need to work in collaboration with a variety of partners and local communities, which I think in North Yorkshire and York we do really well. And I'm pleased to see such a wide range of people and partner organisations come together again this year during Safeguarding Week to raise awareness and help more people understand that safeguarding is everyone's business. Also to acknowledge and celebrate some of the positive work of safeguarding agencies across North Yorkshire and the City of York. And my team and I work really closely with a wide range of organisations, partner ones, statutory and non-statutory partners, as well as local organisations supporting victims of crime and other vulnerable people, including but not limited to North Yorkshire Police, North Yorkshire Fire and Rescue Service, North Yorkshire Council and the City of York Council, Public Health Services, Integrating Commissioning Boards and NHS England. Safeguarding Children's Partnerships and Safeguarding Adults Boards for both North Yorkshire and the City of York. Criminal Justice Agencies, including the Crown Prosecution Service, Yorkshire and the Humber Probation Service and Youth Justice Services, Victim Support, IDAS and Survive, and many, many more. As part of my office's overall responsibility to protect the vulnerable, we also play a really critical role in the work we do with the local Criminal Justice Partnership, which I currently chair, and community safety partnerships for North Yorkshire and the City of York. Next slide, please. So last year, I introduced my new police and crime plan and my fire and rescue plan for 22 to 25, following extensive consultation with emergency services, local partners and members of the public throughout North Yorkshire and the City of York. And the two plans set out my priorities, our priorities, based around the CARE principles, which stand for caring for the vulnerable, developing ambitious collaboration, realising our potential and enhancing our service to the public. Our safeguarding work primarily sits under the caring about the vulnerable strand, and vulnerability has many different forms, as you're aware, and many different impacts, whether due to age, disability, adverse childhood experiences, exploitation, abuse, mental health or isolation. As a victim or a perpetrator, it is vital that we care about people with whom we interact, whatever the reason for that interaction. Next slide, please. So the re-inspection of North Yorkshire Police Child Protection Service took place in December 22, and the HMIC FRS published their report capturing the findings this year in May. The findings weren't acceptable at all. and North Yorkshire Police had a year to progress their action plan following the first HMICFRS report on child protection in November 21. And my team and I were regularly assured that all concerns would be tackled head on and improvements made at a significant pace. But instead, the force is not in a position I expected them to be. Not enough has been done since the initial inspection, and there simply was no excuse. So North Yorkshire Police let the public and the most vulnerable down in our society, which I was not happy with at all. I held a special online public meeting on the 3rd of May this year, where I asked the Chief Constable for a detailed plan on how the force would complete their original schedule of improvements and associated timescales for achieving the outstanding recommendations. You can all watch this video on my YouTube channel and website. I've since published my new assurance framework, which outlines the multiple forums that I and my senior leadership team within the Office of the Police, Fire and Crime Commissioner undertake, and the details the extensive ways we monitor, evaluate and challenge police and fire services on the behalf of the public. By doing that, we have a more granular evidence-based and scrutiny, which is really important. And I expect to see the significant improvements when the inspectorate visit at the end of 23. And I will continue to seek insight from victims of crime across the region to ensure public trust and confidence in the police. And here you can see on the PowerPoint there, my assurance framework, which has been renewed and refreshed. Next slide, please. So the Fire and Rescue Service. I want to spotlight North Yorkshire Fire and Rescue Service for a moment to explain how I oversee and implement the changes to safeguarding as your Commissioner. Improvements in safeguarding were recognised by HMICFRS in their last inspection, with an enhanced training for all frontline staff and an increase in specialist roles. So all staff have clearer understanding of safeguarding and how to make referrals. Referral pathways in and out of North Yorkshire Fire and Rescue Service are efficient, effective and measured. Well-developed relationships with partner agencies regarding safeguarding and early intervention programmes. And North Yorkshire Fire and Rescue Service tactical delivery plans support service strategies. We measure our performances through peer review and safeguarding implementation tool to meet the National Safeguarding Fire Standard. And I asked for assurance in my presentation on July the 22nd in my public accountability meetings, which can be viewed online, to ensure that the service has effective safeguarding policies and procedures and continue to seek these assurances. Police, Fire and Crime Commissioners were instrumental in supporting a legislatively change in the Rehabilitation of Offenders Act 1974. In April 23, I wrote to all members of Parliament in North Yorkshire and York to encourage support of the proposed change to the Act to seek the inclusion of Fire and Rescue Authority employees within the standard safeguarding DPS checks. It gives fire and rescue services the same status as other emergency services, helping ensure consistency across blue light organisations and supporting the statutory duty on collaboration. It reflects the vital and evolving role individuals in our fire and rescue services can undertake. And this could include attending schools, vulnerable people's homes, attending incidents as medical first responders, exercising statutory powers, and helping safeguarding of others. It's only right that the scope of disclosure and barring service, which is the DBS, checks adequately reflects the role of the modern fire and rescue services. Once legislation is passed, I will ask the Chief Fire Officer for assurance on safeguarding checks will be implemented locally by North Yorkshire Fire and Rescue Service and regularly. Like North Yorkshire Police, the fire service also has their own violence against women and girls strategy, which feeds into my overarching one. So another element of my role is to commission services for victims of crime. Those who have experience of crime or the criminal justice system have unmet needs or are vulnerable in other ways. So I invest over £5 million a year supporting interventions and projects with a particular focus on the prevention and supporting the vulnerable. My commissioning and partnerships team ensure that funding is used to develop and deliver a wide range of different support services, projects and interventions which align to the priorities set out in my police and crime plan, my fire and rescue plan, and my violence against women and girls strategy, which includes in-house supporting victims team who provide a telephone-based service to any victim of crime, assessing their needs and offering referrals into specialist support services in line with the Victims Code. Developing our collaborative approaches to tackling domestic abuse through Domestic Abuse Joint Commissioning Group, which is chaired by one of my commissioning and partnerships managers and includes representatives of North Yorkshire Police Safeguarding Unit and the Community Safety, Public Health and Health and Adult Services within North Yorkshire County Council and the City of York Council. This innovative approach was initially adopted in 2018, but continues to grow and develop to provide an enhanced, holistic package of support for everyone affected by domestic abuse, victims, survivors, perpetrators, and their children. And my office is currently leading on the recommissioning of services from 2024 and ensuring that we continue to meet the increasing demand for this specialist support provision. To put this into context, IDAS received 9,747 referrals for domestic victims community services in 2022-23, which is a 14% increase compared to last year. And in addition, IDAS received nearly 9,500 helpline calls, with their hub workers having supported nearly 3,400 individuals, and the community-based teams have supported over 1,700 victims and survivors of domestic abuse, longer term with over 22,000 hours of support provided. More recently, I've invested in a development of a whole family approach to domestic abuse pilot that provides specialist support services for children and young people affected by domestic abuse, delivered by an independent domestic abuse service, which is IDAS, to offer one-to-one specialist support for those children aged 10 years and above, plus supported group work, peer support work networks, and advice for parents. My office continues to support and facilitate independent scrutiny panels for domestic abuse and rape, which review and recommend improvements in the support offered and safeguarding of victims, as well as an investigation of domestic abuse, rape and serious sexual offences in North Yorkshire and the City of York. The hand-in-hand child sexual criminal exploitation and missing service provided by the Children's Society works with children and young people affected by or at risk of child sexual and/or criminal exploitation. Support is also available for parents through Parents Liaison Officer service provided by the Parents Against Child Exploitation, which is PACE. York Women's Centre continues to support many women to secure permanent housing, ensuring they are adequately safeguarded by supporting applications for non-molestation orders, and a successful digital inclusion project during lockdown to limit feelings of isolation. In 22-23, the Women's Centre received 71 referrals, a 29% increase from the previous year, meaning that more women were supported through a really difficult time in their life. And I remain fully committed to providing ongoing funding to ensure specialised, gender-specific and trauma-informed services can continue to be delivered from the centre. And over the coming year, plan to expand these services into North Yorkshire to offer support to an increased number of women, especially those in the rural and isolated areas. In the last year, my team and I also secured over £1.2 million worth of additional funding to help address domestic and sexual abuse, specifically including Over 300,000 additional funding to develop our work to prevent domestic abuse and stalking by working with more perpetrators to support them to change their behaviour, including young people beginning to display abusive behaviours. Over £500,000 to employ 13 additional IDVAs and 5 additional ISVAs to support more victims of domestic abuse or sexual violence abuse. Plus a further £300,000 of funding for local services that support victims and survivors of domestic abuse or sexual violence, such as additional counselling and talking therapy sessions. And I just want to say how proud I am of our police and fire services, community partners, and my team at my office for doing what they can do and doing what they need to do to tackle violence against women and girls here in North Yorkshire. Protecting and supporting our women and girls is incredibly important to me and something I'm passionate about making a difference during my time as Commissioner. It's the legacy I want to leave behind, which is why I continue to work alongside police, fire and crime commissioners from up and down the country to influence and put pressure on the government decisions around how we tackle violence against women and girls on a national scale. Keeping women and girls safe and ensuring they feel safe is not something that one organisation can do alone. A group or emergency service can deliver on their own. It's only by coming together, being honest about the problems and being creative in finding solutions that will create the real change needed. In June last year, I published a joint strategy to tackle violence against women and girls, which was developed together with partners, including North Yorkshire Police, North Yorkshire Fire and Rescue Services, North Yorkshire Council and the City of York Council, in addition to organisations representing women and girls throughout North Yorkshire and the City of York. Statistically speaking, North Yorkshire and the City of York remain one of the most safest places in the country overall, but we know that the incidents of violence against all women and girls do happen, and not all of these incidents are reported to the police. So statistics can only tell us one part of the story. To give you some understanding of this, of the 332 people who completed my survey last year, 55% said they'd experienced some form of violence against women and girls. Of those, 25% said they'd never told anyone, and with the majority saying it was because they were scared or ashamed. And devastatingly, 25% said they blamed themselves. My office will shortly be launching a follow-up survey, which will be available on my website throughout the year for any victim of these types of offences to tell us what we need to do better, to better support them and to prevent them from happening again in the future. I must point out that whilst the strategy focuses on all women and girls, we recognise that men, boys, transgender and non-binary people can also be victims, and that women can also be perpetrators of these types of crimes. Apart from the Women's Centre, which is space for people who identify as female, my commission support and services available in York and North Yorkshire are for all, regardless of gender, age, sexuality or background. I've established a strategic governance board to monitor overall progress against our strategic objectives, and the board includes members representing local organisations working with women and girls and seeks to provide a greater transparency and accountability to increase public confidence in how we're improving the overall safety of women and girls. The board published a 6-month progress review in December and is due to meet again in a couple of weeks to review the overall progress in the first year of delivery and agree what we'll focus on progressing during the remainder of 2023-24. The strategy aims to achieve 6 key objectives. The first one is ensure all women and girls are listened to, including those from underrepresented communities. The second tackles the root causes of violence against women and girls with prevention and early intervention. Third, increase public confidence and trust in North Yorkshire Police. 4, strengthen partnerships so we work together across agencies to address the challenges. 5, enhance the support available for victims and survivors. And 6, invest in early intervention to identify and stop potential offenders and change behaviour of those who are already offended to prevent reoffending. Nearly 1 year on, I'm proud, really proud of the progress that we're making here as the partnership to tackle violence against women and girls, but we have already improved outcomes and increased the accessibility of specialist support services for women and girls more than a year before we launched the strategy, demonstrating how we're putting the spotlight on violence against women and girls is making a real difference across our community. And over the past year, I have contributed towards a specially converted camper van to go out and provide support to women in rural and isolated parts of the county, launched a new survey to understand overall public trust and confidence in North Yorkshire Police, invested in the voice of victims in a commissioned review that looked at the experience of victims and survivors of crime and made recommendations on how services in York and North Yorkshire could be further supported by them in the future. Commissioned Susie Lamplugh Trust to complete a victim-focused review of North Yorkshire Police's response to stalking locally, which identified a number of really positive areas of work, but also some potential areas for development, which we're working on with the police to address. Commissioned specialist stalking training to 116 frontline staff, including 23 staff trained as stalking advocates and 93 staff trained as champions. Staff represented a number of organisations, including support services, the Police Fire and Rescue, my office, plus local universities, local authorities, and our local NHS trust. So that's a lot of people, but we want to do more. I've also commissioned a production company to create a series of mini short films to raise awareness of stalking amongst the 16 to 25-year-olds, which I hope to be showcased specifically to students in the hope that it encourages more young people to seek support if they're a victim of stalking. I'm investing in a new victim centre, which is currently going through planning and refurbishment and will house a new sexual assault referral centre and the child sexual assault assessment services for York and North Yorkshire. My office became the first white ribbon supporter organisation, became an official white ribbon supporter organisation, which means we've made a commitment to raise awareness of the long established and harmful attitudes that perpetrate gender inequality and encourage others to make the white ribbon promise. The Violence Against Women and Girls 16 Days of Action in November last year, I released a series of short videos to highlight the wide range of services available in North Yorkshire and York to support women and girls as part of the National Violence Against Women and Girls 16 Days of Action. And the videos are powerful in showcasing how amazing services in our communities are. And I do encourage you to view and share all 7 videos that can be found on my YouTube channel so they can be seen and heard by women across our combined channels of communication. A full update on progress made against each of the 6 objectives will be available on my website in early July. So if you want to know more about our innovative and ambitious programme of work, then please visit my website here. It's www.northyorkshire-pfcc.gov.uk/women and girls. So my safeguarding priorities for 23-24. I remain committed to the public and victims of crime as I work tirelessly with my team to ensure they receive the standard of policing that they deserve. And I will continue to scrutinise progress and actions taken by North Yorkshire Police to address the outstanding areas of improvement in relation to the Child Protection Inspection, seeking further assurance and evidence-based information to give greater confidence in North Yorkshire Police is performing as I expect it to be. I expect to see significant improvement when the inspection visits again at the end of this year, and I will continue to seek insight from victims of crime across our region. We will continue to seek opportunities for greater collaboration and partnership working, and my team will act as lead commissioner on behalf of co-commissioners North Yorkshire Council and City of York Council to recommissioning and implement a holistic package of support for anyone and everyone affected by domestic abuse, including children and young people, from 2024. It is anticipated the greater value for money will be achieved overall by ensuring that the total local investment by commissioners collectively prioritises the most effective interventions and services for these victims, perpetrators and their children, thereby reducing demand on policing and criminal justice services and other related statutory services such as health, housing, children, young people and family prevention services. And we will continue to facilitate the Strategic Sexual Violence and Abuse Steering Group to work with key partners and stakeholders locally to agree joint strategic priorities and development of a shared core set of outcomes and explore opportunities to jointly commission support services. To progress the Violence Against Women and Girls strategic delivery plan of the next 6 months, we will focus on work with educational establishments to raise awareness of promote zero tolerance of all forms of violence against all women and girls, including street harassment. And after summer, I have plans to engage with students to understand how they feel about male perpetrator violence, their experiences, and what can be done to help them feel safe while studying here in North Yorkshire and York. What I really want to see going forward is an increase in reporting of crimes relating to violence against women and girls. And this does not mean that more crimes are taking place. It is that women and girls have the confidence in the police services that they'll be listened to and believed. What's so important to me, though, is that victims are still accessing support, even if they don't want to so if they're not ready to or want to report a crime to the police. And many services, including my own Supporting Victims service, support people to cope and recover, whether they want to report a crime or not. Building on work on my new Commissioner's Victims Centre is due to commence next month, and the centre is due to open by early 2024. My team are supporting the development of a joined-up approach with other services to improve outcomes for women by developing services which recognise and respond to their distinct and bespoke needs through the whole system approach. And just as importantly, my office has now completed an options appraisal that has been completed to inform delivery of pilot programmes and interventions for perpetrators to close the gap in current service provision, including an out-of-court disposal route for perpetrators of domestic abuse when the police powers come into force later this year. Well, thank you very much for listening. I really appreciate that. I'm going to open the floor up now to any questions, and I can, so please put your hand up if you'd like to. If you don't feel like you want to ask questions right now, you can contact my office in several ways. You can see the phone number there, the email and the web. But I just want to say thank you so much for listening.